We made it, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ask the Theologian. A few minutes late here getting started. Sorry you had to listen to some music over and over again. But hey, nonetheless, we are here and very glad that you're here for our Thursday edition of Ask the Theologian. And we will be doing the book of Romans tonight and looking forward to that. And in about 2 weeks, April the 16th, got this new series coming, Unlearn It, Deprogramming Our Evangelical Mind. That will be in the 1045 service on Sundays, if you can join us live or archived. It's always a blessing to see you all today. And tonight's Romans, I mentioned all that. Good, didn't I? John in West Virginia says, he's making us wait. I am. Time got away from me. Thursday morning's always busy anyway because we have men's breakfast. And sometimes the men like to stick around and talk too long. And then I have to rush in and, get the tie on after cooking breakfast and eating breakfast and being ready to go and make sure my computer's all set up over here like I'm doing right now. But anyway, my apologies for that. We're now official, ready to begin. Glad you all are here with us today, like South Carolina and Texas and Colorado and Arkansas and Belgium and Missouri and more Colorado and Indiana. Good to see you. Oh, we got London here. And West Virginia is already mentioned, and Florida's with us, and Minnesota is with us, and Mississippi, and Illinois, and Wisconsin, and there's some more Texas coming in, and there's California we got here today. So good to have each one of you. By the way, on this particular series, where's that graphic again? There we go. On this particular upcoming series, Unlearn It, Deprogramming Our Evangelical Mind, coming April the 16th at 10:45. I wouldn't mind having your suggestions. I haven't fully fleshed out the session yet, or the series yet. I wouldn't mind having your suggestions on some of the things we need to unlearn. Here's some things I put on the list, but it's not a firm list. These may make it, they may not. I may add to the list. Let's see. Baptism is the first step of obedience. You ever heard that before? That's the evangelical line. Baptism is your first step of obedience. Or how about God won't give you any more than you can handle? That's in the Bible, right? How about repentance is the first step to salvation? You need to repent and then believe. How about the best Bible is the one you will read? Might need to unlearn that one. How about the evangelical dogma of the daily quiet time? Let's see, we've got, you can't work on Sunday. Let's talk about that a little bit. The Christian Sabbath, as it's sometimes called. And then yesterday we put the deal, this one's a little more theological perhaps, I guess they're all theological, aren't they? The bishop, the pastor, the elder, they're all one and the same. These are, some of the things we hear constantly in evangelicalism, and so many of us grew up in evangelicalism, that we need to unlearn it. Deprogramming our evangelical mind. So you got good ideas? I would love to take care of them. Oh, Bruce just gives me a good idea. I'm just going to go over here to my notes and works is not sanctification. Yeah, we get the whole thing of God justified you, God will glorify you, but you must do the sanctification. And you do it by showing up at church 3 times a week with a check. That's how you become sanctified. Very good. Yeah, the daily devotions. You got to do that if you're a good evangelical. Oh, Eric, isn't it good to be in the Lord's house today? Truth is, we've never been in the Lord's house. It was destroyed in AD 70. Oh, thank you, Nicholas. We'll get to the, you all are helping me right now. We'll get to the questions in a moment. But Nicholas up in Illinois, God speaks to you in a still, small voice. Evangelical mantra there, isn't it? Excellent. Y'all just, you just get, the whole tithing thing. I've done a sermon on, in the fact check series about Malachi chapter 3 verse 10, that we're robbing God if we don't bring the tithing. But I might stick it back in here as well. And Nancy mentions born again, the whole born again phrase, and we could look at that and see what biblically it really means. Yeah. I was mentioning all those states earlier and countries, and I didn't mention Canada. John pointed it out. The cool dude from Canada is here. Yes, we're always glad to have the cool dude from Canada here. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, let's see what we've got in your biblical, theological, and worldview questions today. And I was seeing, did I promise something yesterday? Let me go back and see where I left off yesterday. I think we're with, oh no, I got to back up further. Here I thought I was catching up, and now I see that I'm not. Let's go to Nancy, who is passing along a question that came from Donald that I obviously left. And the question is this: after yesterday's horrific shooting in Nashville, now it's been a couple days now, prayers for all, do you think this country will ever return to some level of sanity? Some level of acknowledgement of the level of mental illness rampant within this progressive-led society? There's a question and an opportunity for me to comment there. Will we ever return to some level of sanity? Obviously, that's a little bit of predicting the future, which is a dangerous profession. Even the weathermen don't do too well at that. I think that there's every reason and indication to believe that the rapture is going to come and sanity is not going to exist again until kingdom come. But a lot of people have been wrong on that in the past. So what if we're wrong? What if it's not our generation that's going to be raptured? What if it's another 50 years, another 100 years, another 200, 300, 400 years? The longer there is time, the greater the chance of returning to sanity. There have always been time periods in various societies, and and this tends to spill over national borders and go almost worldwide, and I think probably even always has, some ebb and flow in society. So if the Lord tarries, things will return to some level of sanity. I like the way you put that, some level of sanity, because the world has never been perfect. Deb mentions, have we ever gone back to Mayberry? Well, the truth is Mayberry never existed. There was no Mayberry. When was Andy Griffith and Mayberry set? Was that in the 40s? The set, not the time that they were broadcasting, but the set. Was that 40s? Probably, I'm guessing. But if you read about the 40s, like I've been doing because I've been studying Harry Truman, there were nationwide strikes that were bringing the nation to its knees. This is post-war. Of course, you had the war. Then there were actual communists, like in the Communist Party, who were in the administration, especially the FDR administration. At least now they don't call themselves that, though they're there. So there's always been times in which there wasn't. Our picture of sanity was not, it's more Mayberry than anything. But nonetheless, I think we would all agree, life in the 40s, life in the 50s, life in the 60s, life in the 70s, even in the 60s with its great cultural revolution, I use great in a bad way, was better than, life today. So will it ever return to that? Yeah, give it enough time and it will. I just don't know if we have enough time. That's where the whole, I can't predict the future thing comes in. But what has to happen, and this will happen if there's enough time, but again, I don't know if there's going to be enough time, will there be some level of acknowledgement of the mental illness that is rampant in this progressive-led society? That has to happen. If there's ever going to be any sanity, we have to realize that we have allowed and fostered and created mental illness in our society. And we have done it as a society. Now, let me blame, of course, the elite. And I mean the elite politicians, the elite academicians, and the elite physicians. Those three issues have created our society of mental illness. Now, you might say, how in the world can you create a society of mental illness? It's easy. You let mental illness continue and you do not address it. And you make mental illness the norm. And when mental illness becomes normal, accepted part of life, then the whole society, in a sense, becomes mentally ill. And so academia and the medical, psychomedical world probably started this, and now the politicians have gone along with it, in that which is utterly disconnected from reality is being presented as if it is reality. And until we fix that, we are going to have one problem after another. Whether it's school shootings, which it has been of late, or church shootings, or looting, or you name it, whatever it is, it's just going to grow, it's going to increase, and that's going to happen until we say, you're sick. This is not reality. This is not science. This is fake. This is in your head. You got to get it out. Now, we do that ourselves. We train ourselves against mental illness, don't we? I mean, I train myself against mental illness. Of course, I live in the mountains, I live in the forest, you know that, and there's something about the mountains and the forest in which you're kind of scared of the dark at night. You get out there, in the backyard, and you get very far away from the house, like, ooh, spooky out here. But I'm not spooked anymore. It used to be when, first moved there, every little twig, branch, move, things, you move. What did I do? I trained myself. I said, Bigfoot's not there. He's absolutely not there. And there's no aliens there either. And if there's a bear, he's scared of me. And if there's a mountain lion, he's going to win. So, what have I got to worry about? And so I train myself against mental illness. And we do it all the time. If you're not used to being home alone and then all of a sudden you're home alone, you hear the hot water heater turn on and you're convinced you are about to die because Freddy Krueger's at the door. But then you get used to it and you convince yourself and you work. Now, when a boy thinks he's a girl, we used to tell him, no, you're a boy, and this is what boys do. And girls think they're boys. We said, okay. And there was some level of, if you're a boy and you want to cook, that's fine. I'm a cook. If you're a girl and you want to climb a tree, go for it. And there's certainly a degree of personality that was always allowed within a particular gender, no doubt about that. But we didn't let people think. In fact, I asked Shelley about someone the other day, someone on the news. I said, was it a man who says he's a woman or a woman who says he's a man? And he says, well, it just depends on what day it is. So now they're not even like moving. It's just they choose their gender at will. That is unbelievably stupid. It is impossible. They're not choosing their gender. They're choosing their mental illness for the day. And we have to address that as a society and speak up. The evangelical pastors, for the most part, are scared to speak up out there. Nobody wants to speak up and says, say all that kind of stuff. And I'm randomly picking through some of the comments here, but to the medical world just says, let's drug it. Let's take care of it with drugs. And the medical world is doing unbelievable damage to human beings. I think there ought to be a class action lawsuit against the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association. They are doing untold damage to our society. Here I'll make a few people upset. I'm not sure that I want to go to a doctor who is part of the American Medical Association. There is so much garbage there. Now, if it turns out I need heart surgery or something, I'll probably end up doing it. But there is so much garbage, and so many of us have just bought into the absolute garbage that comes from the local family physician even. And, somewhere we've got to address what is reality. And carry that out. There's today's commentary. We feed it. Bruce says violent interactive games don't help with mental illness. You're exactly right. So they don't want to send them to church because they might get brainwashed, but they'll send them to a video game to play to kill people, rape and pillage. That's all fine, but don't let them go learn about Joseph and the coat of many colors. Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, it just gets so crazy, doesn't it? Amazing. Okay, let's get into here's a biblical question that comes out, then I start reading the comments. This happens every time. I start the question and then I read the comments. Somebody says, I'm finished with doctors. I don't have a problem with that. Someone says, go to a good chiropractor. A good one, I think they can give you some decent advice there. And can help you out. I agree. Just a good, reasonable diet can help you out. If your blood pressure's getting high, why? The doctor never asks why. The doctor will say, here's some fake chemicals that'll bring it down. And it will bring it down. But why do you have high blood pressure? Because you listen to Ask the Theologian too much or what? Figure out what it is in your life that'll bring your blood pressure down. Why do you have diabetes? What is it? I recognize that there are some things that are, one, you can't make the connection, or two, it's an emergency situation, or three, it might be genetic, but just figure out what's going on here. What do I need to do to change it? I've done that some in my own health. Okay, to Roger's question. Does the King James Version get Galatians 3:24 wrong? Oh, can you believe Roger asked that question? We're open to any questions here, so we'll take it. Galatians 3:24, he's got some more comments. Let's take a look here first and see what it says. Wherefore the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith. Now, he starts the question saying, does it get Galatians 3:24 wrong? And then parenthetically, Roger says, or at the very least confuses the issue in adding to bring us unto Christ. Here we have, the law was our schoolmaster, here's the key right here, to bring us unto Christ, that we may be justified by faith. Now, is the addition of those words, to bring us, is that wrong or is it confusing? Now, before I continue to read the comments here, I do want to say one thing, and that I will not use a Bible that does not have italics to say what's been inserted, because they all insert something, but most of them, they're just so trustworthy you should never even question. You do not even need to know what they inserted, because you absolutely implicitly trust them with your very life and soul, if you're that stupid. So I like the fact that the King James uses italics, and I kind of take this as permission, if you will, permission from the King James translators to say, you question this one. Could have gone another way with it, and maybe this doesn't need to be here. Let's look here. That's the King James. Let's look at the Young's literal translation. And it says, so that the law became our child conductor to Christ, that by faith we may be declared righteous. Now, they inserted that little dash right there because they were really kind of saying once again that this doesn't it doesn't really make a full sense, and so we need something. But that's the literal, and the King James is more to be read, to be heard. So to be our child conductor, schoolmaster, it's a word that's going to have a little broadness to it, but to be our child conductor to Christ almost needs something in the English language. Let's see what Darby did on this. Darby says, up to has been our tutor up to Christ, that we may be justified on the principle of faith. And actually, the word to is going to be there. Schoolmaster to Christ. Darby kind of snuck the word up there, up to Christ, which might be half implicit in the word itself. But nonetheless, our schoolmaster to Christ. Okay, going on back to Roger's comments here. So does it get it wrong, or does it confuse the issue to add to bring us? Did the law bring us to Christ? The Greek seems to say that the law was the schoolmaster up to or until Christ. Now, I think, first of all, for Roger and Randy, the law was never our schoolmaster. So if Roger and Randy try to apply this to ourselves and our church, we get it wrong. And that's where all of evangelicalism gets it wrong. In fact, maybe we should just add that to the list. The law leads us to faith in Christ. That's how, what's his name? Ray Comfort would put it. The law never did that. That was for Israel. Us is Israel. So the law was our schoolmaster, was Israel's schoolmaster to bring, or Israel's schoolmaster unto Christ, unto Messiah, that we may be justified by faith. Now that faith has come, we're no longer under a schoolmaster. I don't see the confusion in bring us. It almost seems implicit to me. The law was our schoolmaster unto Christ. Seems to say the same thing as the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ. You might say to preserve us unto Christ, but that's a sense of bring us. It was our schoolmaster, well, even as Darby says, up to the point of Christ. Now we have to have our faith in Christ. He's trying to tell Israel, you need to believe in our Messiah, because the law doesn't do you any good if you reject your Messiah. I think this is a much more Jewish argument. So I think the confusion comes in that we're trying to apply this to the body of Christ, and the law was never our schoolmaster. But going on in Roger's comments, the Greek seems to say that the law was the schoolmaster up to or until Christ. I would agree. Although I don't think the Greek even is saying that the law goes away when Christ comes. I don't think Paul was saying that. I think that what we've got is the law was the schoolmaster, the child conductor, the word that we don't know how to translate, to get us, Israel, to Christ. But then there's still some obligation to the law for the nation of Israel, even under the Messianic kingdom. A lot of good issues there. Thanks, Roger. Let's go to Rich in Poca, West Virginia. Should Christians pray at the Western Wall? I'll give a spiritual answer. You're supposed to pray without ceasing. So you're supposed to pray at the Western Wall, at the Eastern Wall, at the Southern Wall, at the Northern Wall, pray without ceasing. Clearly he's talking about when an individual goes on a trip to the Holy Land. I've got another one coming November 27th, by the way. If you'd like information, I'll send it to you. Haven't even publicized it, and I've got a limit on this one of 25. So if you want to be in a group of 25 or less, this is your group. But it's kind of filling up. It's going. So call me if you're interested in that. But anyway, well, you always go to the Western Wall. Wouldn't be a tour to Israel without going to the Western Wall, would it? And you take a little time. Maybe you go up there. You might even write out a prayer, stick it in the wall, stop and have a prayer there. I don't have a problem with it. I think that God said of the temple, pardon me for not looking this passage up, and I may paraphrase it a little bit. But when Solomon dedicated the temple, 1 Chronicles 10 maybe, but that's a real wild guess. When Solomon dedicated the temple, God said, "My ears will always be attentive to prayers prayed in this place." Okay. So the glory left that place, but are his ears still attentive there? God, I think we could build the case to say God chose that place to be the place where he was going to manifest his glory. Honestly, I think it's better to go there and pray than to go there and have a square dance. I don't know what else you'd really want to do there other than say, hey, here is the place. Even if you don't think God cares a thing about it now, if you take the Bible literally, you would have to say someday the throne of the Messiah is going to be right there up above that western wall. It's probably all going to be remodeled, but this is the geographic location where Messiah is going to come. Let's have a square dance. I think it seems like a natural thing to pray. I don't think there's any kind of extra spiritual power that you get when you pray at the Western Wall. I just think it's a natural response. And maybe some who say, no, you shouldn't pray at the Western Wall, maybe they're trying to mitigate against some idea of the manifestations of God coming right there, or some spiritual empowerment of the location. And I understand that. But I just think, that is the place where if anywhere in the world you would go and stop and have a prayer, it seems like that would be the place. So I would have no problem with it at all. What do some of the rest of you think? Is there anything in there that you all would say, oh no, absolutely not. Don't pray there. Wouldn't I'd take your opinion. But yeah, I think that any piece is kneel in fear and awe wherever you are. And I completely agree with that. But there is something about that particular place that does bring about a reverence to God and awe of what has happened there in the past, in the literal work of God, and what will happen there, and to think about the glory departing the temple, and to think about the second coming of the temple when the glory returns. That's a good place for a worship service right there, a little personal worship service, a little personal time with God. Excellent. Let's go to Scott down in the hill country of Texas, who says it seems like in the second chapter of Galatians, Galatians 2:14. Let's just stop and read Galatians 2:14. When I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, I said unto Peter before them all, if thou being a Jew live after the manner of the Gentiles, not as the Jews, why compellest the Gentiles to live as do the Jews? Okay, with that background, it says it seems like Galatians 2:14, Paul in his confrontation with Peter claims that there is only one gospel. Yes, I would agree. He does claim that. However, I think he's already narrowed down his audience. So, according to the truth of the gospel, the Pauline gospel, it doesn't say the truth of the gospels, the kingdom gospel, the Pauline gospel. But I think he narrowed that down in chapter 1, verse 8, though we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel, that must mean there is another gospel, preach any other gospel unto you. Here is the key. Unto you, than that which we have preached, let him be accursed. So you get in Galatia, where they are and where Paul is confronting Peter, there is only one gospel to preach to the Galatians. The kingdom gospel has absolutely no value for the Galatian audience. So if Peter comes and preaches to the Galatians kingdom stuff, let him be accursed. That gospel's no gospel at all. Now, if Peter's down in Jerusalem speaking to the Jews in a nation that can still receive its gospel, its kingdom, that's a whole different matter. And I think what would be interesting, and this would be hard to do, but someday I'm going to do it. What would be interesting is to set Paul's argument of the Galatians side by side with Paul's testimony before, like Agrippa and Felix and Festus. Because here's what you're going to find. I know you're going to find it. I just haven't found a good way to present it yet. But I've studied it all, so I know it's not like I need to do the study and say, I think you're going to find it. I just need to figure out how to present it. What you're going to find is in the book of Galatians, Paul says, one gospel, absolutely no law. You get Paul before Felix, Festus, and Agrippa, and they say, you've been teaching these people, these Jews, not to teach the law. He says, I have not. Never, ever, ever have I taught them to do anything other than respect the law and the prophets. Well, what about the book of Galatians, where you said, don't add a single tidbit of the law? And the difference is the audience. He was charged in Caesarea with teaching Galatians to the Jews. That's what the words were used, but that's it. He was teaching Galatians to the Jews. So Paul has a very different message to the Galatians than he does to the Jews. So you could, if somebody didn't do the full study and you wanted to use some things out of context, you could make Paul look like a liar, pants on fire. Because you could take Paul's testimony before Festus, Felix, and Agrippa and show that Paul says, no, you got to be true to the law of Moses. And you could take the book of Galatians and Paul saying, man, if you're true to the law of Moses, let him be accursed. Just mutilate yourselves. And it would look like Paul is dysfunctional at best. But you got to take the audience. That's why I say Galatians chapter 1, verse 8, unto you is the key word. He doesn't just say, as is almost always quoted, he doesn't just say, preach any other gospel than that which you have preached. Let's for fun, let's take a look. I don't know that I have ever done this, but let's go to Galatians 1:8, and how do I used to know how to, oh, there we go, I found it. That other software changed all their menus. Now I can't find anything. They didn't ask me ahead of time, and I just think it's terrible. But here I found it, and I brought up the other software. Well, I only have NASB, ESV, and NIV here, Galatians 1:8. This unto you is what I'm concerned with. Preach to you, they kept it in NASB, ESV, preach to you, NIV should preach a gospel other than the one we preached you. That changes it. That says a completely different thing. I am willing to say that the New International Version is not a Bible. I'll wait a moment for some of you to pick up from the shock. The NIV is not a Bible. It can be. It doesn't say the same thing. It has to say the same thing to be a Bible. It doesn't say the same thing. Compare King James, Galatians 1:8, to NIV, Galatians 1:8. It's not just different wording, it is a different message. So, you come here, reminded me of that series. Where's the one? I had something here on the, oh yeah, the best Bible is the one you'll read. That's one of those things we need to unlearn. Wouldn't make myself a note about Galatians 1:8. Might come up in that sermon there. So yeah, Paul. Okay, to get back down to the question, Paul does say, it does imply in Galatians 2:14 that there's only one gospel. But I think it's because he's already narrowed his audience. For the Galatians, there's only one gospel. And this is where those who don't understand right division, they always go wrong. They'll say something like, Randy White's a right divider and he believes there's more than one gospel. Well, what they never bring up is, who's the audience? I don't believe there's more than one gospel for Scott in the hill country of Texas. There's only one. From my church pulpit, when I share the gospel, it's only one. If I'm talking to someone about the gospel, it's only one. Now, if I'm teaching the Bible, which is kind of what preachers do, then there's more than one. And anybody who reads the Bible can kind of figure that out. But we don't. Let me encourage my series on rightly dividing the gospel if anyone's curious about any of that. Thanks, Scott, down in the hill country of Texas. I appreciate that. And let's go to Eric. Maybe I can answer this question, maybe I can't. Eric up in Oslo, Minnesota. Can you give a quick breakdown of Daniel? Specifically, which portions refer to Alexander the Great and which portions refer to the Antichrist and end-time events? Daniel can be a bit confusing. Indeed, Daniel can be a bit confusing. I do have a series on Daniel for anyone who wants it, and I am, let me look here and see. It's not there. Let me try somewhere else. I was looking to see if it's on the new website yet, but it's not. Yeah, in our at randywhiteministries.org, I just did a Command F and type Daniel, but you go down about halfway or so. It's your screen. It depends on your screen size. There's this Book of Daniel series right here that you should be able to go into there, and it's got 21 sessions on it, so. Quite a bit there. But anyway, if you want not the quick breakdown, you can check that out. Now, Daniel does get a bit confusing because you're trying to figure out, is he talking about things in the past like Alexander the Great, or things that have now been fulfilled? It would have been future from Daniel's time. Or is he talking about things in the future like the Antichrist? And here's the problem. I think Alexander the Great becomes a type of the Antichrist even. That is a foreshadow of the Antichrist. So the quick answer is, it might be about both. You get the little horn and the conspicuous horn. But here's what I would do on Daniel. If I was sitting down to study Daniel, all by myself for the very first time, I would say I want to take the most obvious literal interpretation that there is. And so when you get into these visions like of the shaggy goat, you look at that and you say, obviously this is a prediction of something. What's the most literal prediction of it can be, even without looking, before you look into any commentaries or you read my series on it or study my series on it, you say, what in the world could this be? Could this be a world leader? Could that world leader be the Antichrist? Does that fit other things I know about the Antichrist? Or does it not fit? See, make your hypothesis and then test it. And so you begin reading, and you take Daniel chapter 2, and you get the four kingdoms. And fortunately, Daniel describes enough of the first kingdom, the golden head, that we can begin to project some of that on out. And if the golden head represented the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, the torso of silver probably does not represent a buffet at a restaurant. Probably not. Probably represents another kingdom. I think we could get that even if the text didn't give hints, but the text gives grace hints. So then we can say, okay, what kingdom did come next? And then we check our history and say, well, it's the Persians. In fact, even before Daniel was done, it was the Persians. And then the next and the one after that. How did this play out? And we can begin to put it together. But start with the most literal. Now, what's going to happen, I think, is you're going to bump into some in which you're going to have to say, this is not talking about Alexander the Great. It can't be. And there's where I would say, look further and find the Antichrist. Hope. That is a help. Liz, I am not sure where Liz is from. This question came in a few days ago. Sorry about that, Liz. Hope you're still with us. Glad you're here. And the question is, are Catholics saved if they believe in Jesus but also believe in doing works? I understand Ephesians 2:8, that we're saved, not saved by works. But if Catholics believe in Jesus, would they still be saved, but their works irrelevant? I'm going to use a different illustration and back my way into the Catholicism question. Are Baptists saved if they believe that you have to have works or your faith was spurious? Because that's pretty much what Baptists teach. Certainly Calvinists teach it. Or you could put it this way, are Calvinists saved if they believe God selected them for salvation rather than they came on their own and just placed their faith in Christ? So there's all of these traditions of men, whether it be the Calvinists or the Baptists, or let's even say the Charismatics. Are you saved if you haven't had the second blessing? You don't speak in tongues, which is the proof of salvation, so are you even saved? And there's these dogmas out there that add to salvation. Some are dogmatic on it. And we should listen to those. Dogmatic people sometimes have something to offer. And yet, on this case, I am not one of them. I think that, for years, I would have taught one of those things that I have since unlearned, and I'm going to be teaching beginning April 16th on the Unlearn It series, Deprogramming Our Evangelical Mind. I I thought the first step of obedience is baptism. If you're not willing to follow Christ publicly, I'm not even sure that you're saved. So adding all that stuff in there, that really was a requirement, even though I said, Ephesians 2:8, we're saved by grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. But you better have something to boast on later, or you ain't got nothing. There's these fine prints that undid it. But I'm convinced I was saved. Now, here's where the difference, let's say, between the Baptist and the Catholic comes. Is Catholic theology, and we can't go by the individual Catholic because they might have mixed several things together, or came to their own conclusion, hopefully. But Catholic theology itself is not to place your faith in Jesus Christ and be saved. If you read the Catholic catechisms, Catholic theology is you receive grace by receiving the sacraments. Yeah, I hope you have faith in Jesus Christ. But you receive grace by receiving the sacraments. This is how grace comes into your life. Do you want the body and blood of Jesus Christ to be efficacious for you? You better go to Mass. And you're not allowed at Mass unless you have received the sacrament of baptism, for example. And you've got to go to confession. And you got to do this again tomorrow. So, whereas the Baptists would come along and teach you have to place your faith in Jesus Christ, whether you do anything else or not. Then they come back and they unteach that later. Shame on the Baptists, but at least they were in the neighborhood of right. But if you read a Catholic plan of salvation, it is very different. Now, again, the individual Catholic out there might have run across the gospel and placed their faith in Jesus Christ, and now their expression of that is Catholicism. I would encourage them to read their Bible and to get out of Catholicism. I think you could be saved as a Catholic. Now, again, there's some who are dogmatic out there, and they would say, no, absolutely not. You're not. But then they get into, you're not saved unless you go down to my right dividing church and teach it exactly. And that's just a different kind of sacrament. And I don't see need to throw out one sacrament and get another. I just think we ought to grow in that. So if a Catholic has placed his faith in Jesus Christ and Christ alone, would be saved. But I think to do that, they would have to reject the tenets of Catholicism. Because officially Catholicism says, here is Joe Catholic over here, and he does not have the grace of God unless he has received the sacraments. So Catholic theology is, we don't care what Joe does in placing his faith in Jesus Christ. We have the keys to the kingdom, and we will offer him salvation when we are good and ready. And we will do it the way we are going to do. So you'd have to become not Catholic. If you truly said, I believe that I was saved without the mechanism of the church. In which case you're not a Catholic if you believe that. You might go to a Catholic church, but you're not a Catholic. So because of the official teachings of the Catholic Church, I think you would have to say Catholicism does not teach salvation. does not teach salvation by grace through faith, not of yourselves. It teaches salvation that comes at the will of the Pope. When he gives you salvation, then you're saved. Otherwise, there is no salvation. That's why it's a big thing, not to receive communion, the Mass. And, finally, there was that priest in San Francisco who finally had a backbone and told Nancy Pelosi she couldn't have it. I don't agree with their theology, but I think if you're going to have theology, you just as well do it. And so why would you give Nancy Pelosi the baby killer to say, oh, yeah, here's grace. We want to give unto you grace. You go against every tenant we ever had, but, you're rich and famous, and so we wouldn't want to go up against you. Yeah. Finally, somebody stood up against that. Just one. Anyway, I got away from that question. Thanks, Liz, for your question. I'm going to ring the bell on that one. I don't know that I've ever answered that question, at least in that manner. Thank you. Yeah, a related question that I'm gonna take. This came in late. Christopher Fletcher. Rudy, I'm going to come to the Belgium question in just a moment because it's related to the Western Wall question we had a minute ago. Chris, I want to welcome Chris from Birmingham. Did I say it right, Chris? Birmingham, United Kingdom. Haven't seen your name before. I am glad you are here. I am going to save your question for tomorrow. Sorry about that, because I'm going to get Rudy's question today, and I'm already out of time. But Chris in Birmingham. I have been to Birmingham before, one time, a number of years ago, and we have listeners in London, West London, and Shrewsbury, and some of those other places. So welcome, Chris from Birmingham. And if you're in Alabama, it's Birmingham. Okay, I'll get your question tomorrow. But I just wanted to say hi. But Rudy in Belgium has a question related to Rich's question we had earlier about praying at the Western Wall. And the question is, are non-Jews allowed to go near the wall? And the answer is absolutely yes. You can go to the wall, you can touch the wall, you can pray at the wall, you can do anything you would like there. And as a matter of fact, I am sure here that, how does this work here? If I just go back a little bit in my pictures from February, I'll have a picture of some of us at the wall and be able to describe that perhaps just a bit more here. That's a good picture there. It was at the wall. It's not the picture I was going to show you, but I'll go ahead and show you. Here's me with the pretty soldier lady girls. And this is the Western Wall behind right here. And we wanted to take a selfie there. See, they let pigeons on the wall. There's the wall right there. Okay, at the Western Wall. And as you can see, if I zoom in right here, in fact, I think this might be Rich right here over to the left. This is Gentiles at the wall, touching the wall, whatnot. In fact, I don't even have a picture of any Jews there at that portion of the wall. There we go. Yeah, down here at the end, you see some Jewish men there, obviously, but a lot of Gentiles right there at the Herodian Western Wall. Anybody can go to the wall. They ask men to cover their head, which is why all those guys have ball caps on. They ask them to cover their head. You can go on Temple Mount It's a hassle logistically, but you can do it. So there's really no restrictions there. You're in kind of a security area. There is a you walk through a metal detector, but it's not all that big a deal. There we go. Thank you all for being here. Tonight, 7 p.m., we will do the book of Romans, and looking forward to that. And then this Sunday, we'll be doing the tour of Israel, virtual tour of Israel, 9:45, digging a little deeper into some of these Easter era stories that we've been looking at 10:45. And look forward to carrying that out. Chris in Birmingham, we'll get your question tomorrow. And I got a lot of other questions sitting here waiting for me as well. Nancy, I like yours. This is not Nancy in Colorado. This is Nancy somewhere else. What do you say about ministers who call themselves apostles? That'll be good. Tim, also a good name there. Asked a question about the cosmos. We'll look at that. Mossy Man out there asking a Peter Ruckman question. John, West Virginia's got a question. Bruce, Indiana's got a question. We've got a busy day tomorrow. Jim, North Carolina, South Carolina. I always get that mixed up. Manny, we'll get to them all. But thanks each one of you for being here. And again, if you can join us tonight or on the archives for the Book of Romans, we get into the 7th chapter tonight. Thanks very much for being here.